In this part of cross-examination, we will ask some questions about religions. Are you ready? I'm ready. Why are there so many true religions? Wasn't it possible for a religion to be prescribed at the time of Prophet Adam, peace be upon him, and for all humans to follow that religion only? They say religion is opium. That is, the rulers make people sleep using religion and direct them according to their own wishes. Is there really such a thing? Can you prove that Islam is not a human invention? How do you know that the Quran has not changed like the other books? What is the need for religions and prophets? A religion and a prophet are necessary to understand the meaning of life. We can understand it as follows. For example, suppose we drew a picture in which we used all the colors in the world. Now, if we displayed that painting, in which we used so many colors, in an exhibition area and invited people there, it would be very illogical not to light up that place, wouldn't it? Why? Because in a dark area where there is no light, colors cannot be appreciated. Our use of color proves that we are going to illuminate it. Similarly, the universe is like an artwork that has meanings like thousands of different colors. When we look at it, the universe, for people to understand them, to grasp thousands of meanings, a prophetic light is necessary. As we said, the light is necessary to appreciate the colors of a painting. Similarly, the light of prophethood is necessary to understand the meanings in the universe. Besides, we already see that Allah fulfills all our needs for us. For example, even just for the needs of our tongues and stomachs, He created hundreds of thousands of types of food and drink. Allah, who meets the needs of our tongues and the needs of our stomachs, would definitely send a prophet for our greatest need, our search for meaning, to answer our fundamental questions like, who am I? Where am I going? But can't people understand these meanings themselves without prophets being sent to them? Can't they understand? We can think of it like this. For example, suppose that there are many antique items in an exhibition area, like a very valuable table from the period of Sultan Mehmed the Conqueror. If we don't put a guide there to explain the value of it and that it's a very unique item, people who go there may look at it as being worthless. For example, if its true value was $5 million, people may regard it as being worth only $5. They may see it as something worth $5 only. So, antiques can't be understood without a guide. Misunderstandings might occur. Similar to the example of antique table and its worth above, man can try to interpret the meanings and artworks in the universe, but the probability of being wrong is very high. Likewise, when we look at people's thoughts right now, there are many different interpretations about the universe. Even today, we can see that many people do not understand the meaning of the universe. For example, if someone looks at the sun right now, do you think he infers something, or does he just say the sun is 1.5 million times the size of Earth and does not care at all about it being a sign of God? We are in a situation where we can't even understand the meaning of something, let alone misinterpret it. In other words, it's only through the prophets, guides sent by the one who created the universe himself, that is, Allah, can real meanings be found. Can't religions be human inventions? People can have wrong ideas, wrong thoughts. For example, there are false faiths such as idol worshipping, sun worshipping, and fire worshipping. But Allah corrects these false faiths by sending the prophets. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was the last of these prophets sent to correct these false faiths. What do we say in Islam anyway? La ilaha illallah. What does it mean? We say there is no God worthy of worship but Allah. So what do we do with all those false faiths, false ideas in the first part? We eliminate them by saying there is no true God. What do we say next? Except Allah. So there are false faiths here too. The prophets came to correct them. When we look at Islam, we see that it proves the falsity of other religions and faiths. It also proves to us that it is the only true religion. In other words, there are false faiths invented by humans, but Islam is not one of them. Can you prove that Islam is not a human invention? Well, of course we can prove it. When we look at Islam, we see that it is a religion that convinces both the heart and the mind. With wrong religions, ideas, and ideologies, we see impossibilities. Islam gives the most convincing answers to man's most basic questions. For example, who am I? Where did I come from? Why was I created? What is the purpose of the existence of this universe? Where are we heading? Islam gives the answers to the most important questions in a way that convinces people. It proves that Islam is true. Also, in terms of managing the society, in terms of managing people, it offers us the most accurate information and methods. For example, it gives the system of zakat, prohibits interest, and together with the rules of justice, it gives the best management tools to manage a society. And it gives it to us universally. In other words, no matter what era you live in, you can always see the rules of Islam as a solution. So we can see from it that Islam is true. Besides, when we look at the Quran, we can see that it is true with dozens of miracles. For example, the miracles about the unknown or the miracle of eloquence are challenging people to bring a similar one, something like it, but though 1400 years have passed, no one has been able to bring anything like it. Like the existence of scientific facts that describe the universe with very accurate information, we can see that it is true with all the information contained in it. What is the miracle of eloquence? When we say eloquence, we can understand it like as follows. We can understand it as the strength of its literary aspect. That is, the Quran has such expressions that it sometimes expresses many meanings with one word and sometimes with one letter. And this style of expression is at such a high quality level that man cannot write anything similar. We can understand it like this. How does the Quran address the people living in the period in which it was revealed? It challenges them by saying, bring a similar one. Although rhetoric was at a high level at that time, the people could not respond to the challenge and preferred to physically fight. Accepting the possibility of both their own death and the death of their families, they preferred war over bringing or producing anything similar to the Quran. In other words, it means that the eloquence of the Quran surpasses human mind. They say religion is opium. That is, the rulers make people sleep using religion and direct them according to their own wishes. Is there really such a thing? First of all, we need to distinguish Islam from the other religions, because when you say religion, it is a general term, but when we look at Islam, let alone making people sleep, it constantly encourages people to think. It is a religion that warns people by saying, research and reflect constantly. Don't you ever question? Can we say it makes people sleep? Of course not. For example, in other religions, people can become very important. As it is said, managers want to use people. But how is it in Islam? Knowledge is important in Islam. The Holy Quran and the Sunnah, two sources of knowledge. So with Islam, we're talking about a religion in which books and information are spoken about rather than people. This means that a Muslim does not act under the pressure of anybody. The information is clear. The Quran is clear. The Sunnah is clear. Thus, people can decide their way. When we look at the basis of this discourse, we see that it emerged after Christianity was distorted. In other words, that Christianity is not a discourse that has anything to do with Islam. People can be given very important positions in Christianity and other religions. Authority to forgive can be given to certain people. However, is this the case when we look at Islam? No. What do we say? We say it is only Allah that forgives. Let me even say this. Since Islam describes the world as a cultivating field of the hereafter, it is a religion that encourages people to work in the world and to do something productive in this world. What? As a person works, he gets to know Allah's name of Ar-Razak, the sustainer. Naturally, since working is also a deed of worship, it motivates people to work in this worldly life. Thus, we are talking about a religion that encourages people to work, let alone make them sleep. We're talking about a religion that stimulates people to think and reason. That is to say, a statement such as, the religion is opium, it stupefies, can never be valid for Islam. If Islam is the true religion, why does Allah allow other religions to be distorted and spread? Wouldn't it be against the secret of testing? Just think about it. There is only one true religion. It is Islam, isn't it? If Allah were to prevent the spread and existence of other religions with a coercive effect, we couldn't talk about the testing ground or a will. There may be wrong ideas, but what happens? Allah sends prophets to correct those wrong ideas, wrong views. So what happens then? In a way, a wrong idea is corrected by the true idea. Here too, it is up to the individual to choose the right path or wrong path with his free will. In other words, Islam is the true religion, then other religions should be prevented. An inference like that is not a correct inference. Islam is true. It can be proved. Anyone who wishes can accept different ideas because they're in a testing place. Why are there so many true religions? In the time of Prophet Adam, peace be upon him, wasn't it possible for a religion to be sent and all humanity to follow that single religion? Firstly, let me say this. There is only one true religion, Islam. Other religions are not true religions. But if you ask, why were so many religions sent since Prophet Adam, peace be upon him? Allah sent 124,000 prophets because people distorted Islam. Normally, rules were sent to the Prophet Adam, peace be upon him, and rules were sent to the other prophets too. But since they were distorted, Allah corrected them with new knowledge and new prophets. Basically, the information given by all the prophets was the same. What? Tawheed, the oneness of Allah, prophethood, the hereafter, and justice. The prophets always gave the same information on these four principles. Well, Allah did not allow the Quran to be distorted. Was it not possible for Him to prevent the first religion from being distorted by people? Yes, of course, it was possible for Allah not to allow it to be distorted. But due to some wisdom, Allah allowed it. For example, we can think of it like this. We can think of the world community as being in the field of testing, in the field of education in a way. What happens to people's lifestyles as thousands of years pass? they are diversified and shaped. Even in a single year, we make changes in the clothes we wear, don't we? We wear short-sleeved t-shirts in the summer and then change to sweaters in winter. So even in 1 year, if changes occur according to conditions, according to the lifestyle of people in the human world, and according to their living conditions, it is quite normal for different rules and information to be sent. Based on this wisdom, Allah left those people alone with relation to distortion. We can also think of it this way. As we've said, we are in a field of education. For example, let's think of a school system. There is a different education system in primary school. Basic information is given. But what happens to the information as we progress towards university education? Information becomes complex and detailed. Similarly, the world of humanity has become increasingly detailed and information has diversified. Based on this wisdom, He allowed them to be distorted, and with the new prophets, He detailed the education system, and with Islam and Quran, this education system has reached its final point, perfected. Yes, I understand the distortion of religions from ancient times, but why were the religions of the new times, such as the Bible and the Torah, distorted, but not the Quran? Now we need to look at the characteristics of the Quran. The Quran is the last book. Islam is the last religion and it is universal. After that, a new prophet will not come. A new corrector will not come. The preservation of the Quran is a necessity of wisdom, and it is quite reasonable. If it's the last book and it's universal, and if it provides solutions to all the questions, the preservation of the Quran is common sense. As people made mistakes, as they distorted a book sent to a prophet of God, a new prophet came and corrected those mistakes of people. A new prophet and a new corrector constantly came, and there were about 124,000 prophets and messengers. Naturally, related to the issue of people's distorting and the issue of not protecting the book, it is quite reasonable that they are tested. On the one hand, there were prophets sent separately to small societies. On the other hand, the Quran is a universal book that has been sent to all humans and genies. It is the last book that is valid for all people and all times. Naturally, the preservation of the Quran is quite logical. How do you know that the Quran has not changed like other books? There's not even a single objection regarding this issue. That is, even if an atheist comes to argue, he does not object to the fact that the Quran has not been changed, because it is an issue known to everyone that the Quran has not been changed. How can we understand it? We can verify it in many ways. For example, when you get a copy of the Quran from somewhere in Istanbul, and when you go somewhere in England and get a copy of the Quran, you'll find that both are exactly the same. There's no change in any place. So we can understand that the Quran has been preserved because in case of a slight change, hundreds of variations would occur. Or we can think of it like this. In Islam, there's a system called the memorization system, right? What's that? Some people memorize the Quran completely from the beginning to the end. Even today, there are millions of hufaz, memorizers of the Quran. As we get closer to the light, that is, to the times of the Prophet, peace be upon him, we see that the people were strongly attached to the Quran. The system of memorization started from there onwards. So when we look at the memorization system, we can clearly understand that the Quran has been preserved. Besides, there is a tradition of muqabala in Ramadan, right? What is it? Every Ramadan, the Quran is recited from the beginning to the end. The continuation of this tradition shows us that this knowledge was preserved and continued every year. In addition, pages of the Holy Quran were published on the website of the University of Birmingham. What happened? A copy of the Quran was found, and when the carbon-14 test was done on it, it was concluded that it was exactly the same as the original copies of the Quran. So we are talking about a common view of the whole world. There is no discussion, let alone the change of a letter. We are warned by the Quran teacher even when we make a small mistake like prolonging a vowel while reciting the Quran. They, the Quran teachers, also warn you when you do not prolong it properly. So there's no need to talk about the change of the letters and the change of the Quran. So many scientists and famous researchers do not have this information contained in the Quran, and you, Muslims, know it. Rather than the number of people or their positions, we need to look at the knowledge. We need to look at the proof. If there is proof somewhere, people's comments are irrelevant. Similarly, we look at the Quran, we look at Islam. It offers hundreds and thousands of irrefutable proofs. In other words, if there is evidence, even if the whole world denies it, it does not matter. In fact, Badi'uzzahman Sayyid Nursi stated the following regarding this: "He who closes his eyes makes it dark only for himself."